Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast. My name is Elizabeth Savion, and thank you guys for joining us on today's episode. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. And also, I'm just very excited because I have the owners and the most VIPs today from Hi Hello Labs and that own this beautiful studio space. So thank you to Hi Hello Labs for creating this amazing space, as well as allowing us creators to create here, because I feel like if that is something that we really need to hear, and I'm just really excited to be a part of this, as well as to have this conversation today. I know that for a lot of you guys that don't know, Carolina and Carlos have been founders of Hi Hello Labs, Hi Hello Co. We have the pickleball community as well.
We have all the things happening. Nico and Bass, CoCalled podcast.
Exactly. They're those people that they're like, we bought the domain. We got
Yes, I 100% have a domain problem. It is a thing. We're working on it. He supports
famous.
it.
Yes. They're influencers. We have Carlos the Kardashian. So welcome to Beauty Marks Podcast. I feel honored having you guys today. How are you guys?
Amazing.
Thank
you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I know. This is my second time on this show, so I feel super duper honored. But my first time
I guess you
together.
did good because they asked you back.
Yeah, I guess that's a good sign. But yeah, so it's so fun, and I said this on the episode I was in. But I just love this. I love this podcast. Just the value you provide to your audience and the conversations you hold space for is really inspiring, and I think so needed and relevant in the times we're in. And so I'm just excited to have another awesome conversation with you.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. And thank you for believing in me. I always have said that to other people as well. Like, you guys are that couple that I met, and I'm telling you, my life changed. And so I know that maybe you might not see all the fruits of people that you pour into, but at least for me, that's where I see you guys as you were that pivotal moment that was an answered prayer for me. And so I hope I can be the same to you guys in whatever way possible. Because sometimes we make, I don't know if you guys have experienced that sometimes you're like, okay, I'm pouring the seeds in certain things, but you don't know how it's going to come all back. Right. Or maybe you have a heart or passion about something and you're like, how is this all going to play together, Lord? Yeah. And then you see certain people that come in and out of life. But at the end of the day, I feel like there are always those marks that we put in people's lives.
Yeah.
So Carlos, how it's your first time here, can you share a little bit about what you're passionate about?
Oh my gosh, what a weighty question. What I'm passionate about, one of my big passions is obviously my wife. My family.
I didn't even pay him to say that.
My family, building family together. I think building legacy is something that's very unimportant, which should be very important because we're building the next generation. So I'm very passionate about what I lay and what ground I lay for my kids as far as entrepreneurial roles, masculine roles, as a father, as a husband. And it's so, all these songs are so, the cheesy songs where it's like a, daddy's little girl and whatever. I really want my daughter to grow up and thinking, daddy laid, what am I looking for? Daddy
laid
the foundation for high standards. And I'm very passionate about that. Passionate about my work, art, voice, the voices of people, getting good content out there, partnering with people that actually have a calling to something greater than just themselves. And I'm passionate about being famous. I'm kidding.
Of course.
I'm kidding.
He's half kidding on that. I want zero fame in my life.
You said you can be the one.
Yeah, you can be famous. I want to be wealthy, not
But she
famous.
wants to be on all my videos.
Okay. That makes sense.
I want to be what?
You want to be on all my videos.
Of course.
Of course she doesn't want to be famous.
Of course. That's all on you. No, and honestly, Carlos is such a jokester. Everybody knows it. He is someone that is so as he says things, no, there's a little bit of truth, but he's not. And I just love, you guys put 100 on everything that you guys do. I feel like since you guys started here, to see how much it has grown and everything. And also that you guys came from working together kind of in corporate, right? I would say nonprofit. Yeah. And so has that always been like a dream of your guys's, to have your own spot and do that?
Not for me.
No.
Yeah, so it's funny. I've always been kind of entrepreneur at heart, always have an idea. I mean, since I was little, it was just who I am, built that way. Now, it's interesting because even though Carlos didn't have the entrepreneurship vein in him until later, we have always envisioned life together and like vision together. And so even while he was still working, like we started the podcast, so we started CoCalled, and I can talk a little about that. We have some other projects still down the pipeline that were just like pipeline dreams. And I feel like now that we've been working together as entrepreneurs, those dreams feel so much more closer to being more reality than like crazy pipeline. And so that's been really cool. But yeah, we're very passionate about, like I mentioned, CoCalled. I kind of like, I was sharing, having that entrepreneurship and that in me. And I've always been a very ambitious woman. Like just even before we were married, I had all these ideas. I had a nonprofit I had started. There are a lot of things that I've always put my hands to. And so when Carlos and I met, I never saw myself as like, 50-50. I'm like, you're getting a whole package, babe. Like, you're getting a whole babe here. And so, and same with him. I was getting a whole package. He was, doing amazing in his career and just really himself and doing well for himself. And so when we came together, it was like, how do we now, no pun intended, but marry these two people, these two visions? I feel very strong in my calling and who I am, and he feels very strong in his calling and who he is. And then we were like, well, then we must be CoCalled. And it's this random word that doesn't even exist. We just made up, but it's like we're now called together, right? My strengths and his strengths have now come together for something extraordinary and bigger than ourselves. And that's kind of been the foundation of our marriage. And, what's really saw us through even through the hard times.
And to answer your question, actually, I said it wrong. I did see vision and business, I guess, in my life, because I was just remembering, I was like, it was one of the things that I think got you to love me or like me or whatever. When we were sitting down on a bench and I started talking about like, one day I want to have an apparel brand, and one day I want to have, a restaurant with my mom, and one day I want to have like, so it's all these things that I was like, man, I do remember all that stuff. And that's what, and it wasn't to entice her and like, look at me. It was just like visions and dreams that one has, which, be careful, dreams cost a lot of work.
Yes, they do.
But it was always that part of me. However, I did come from a 9-to-5 type of role where it's like my aunts, uncles, fathers, cousins, like we all like did the 9-to-5, which is a secure way to live, and it's good for a lot of people. But that little vein in me of like entrepreneurship was kind of dormant until I met my CoCalled partner.
She like sparked something. But it's like, that's amazing to see how like there is things that like God puts in us individually, right? And it's like, if you get with the right person, that God has for you, it's like that can go farther, and kind of awaken those dreams or even help you. Because I see like you guys, and there's not to toot your horn or all of that, but it's like you guys are not a perfect couple, because no, there are none of those, but you guys are correct. A great example of a healthy couple. And I share a lot as like being single myself, and a lot of people that are dating. Something that's so important to see those couples that like they are someone that like they can grow together and you know, kind of like how you said, Carlos, about like bringing family and legacy back. It's like those kind of things that we've kind of lost over the years.
Absolutely.
That my generation sometimes feels like, what's the point of marriage? Like, what is the point of all of this? So when you guys share that, it like really encourages me, because it's like, I know that there are really healthy couples that it's like they are doing more than, you know, just getting through the marriage or getting to the 18-year-old kids. Like, and so can you guys share a little bit about CoCalled and like what that really looks like? What does it mean to be both called in a partnership, I would say?
Yeah.
I think it's being not selfish. I think it's, when we defined it and when we thought about it, it was like, what can I do for you to highlight you? And I think in marriages, especially nowadays, there's a lot of selfishness going on where it's like about me. What can she do for me? How can she serve me? And especially in the Hispanic world, like with masculinity and like macho and all that. But it was like, okay, I need to serve you. So how can I serve you? And in turn, you know, she'll serve me. And I think when it comes to CoCalled, it's that. It's like you're called to serve one another. Not necessarily one leads and the other one stays behind. Like, you know, we both need to lead.
Well, and I think to add to that, there's an eternal perspective, right? Like there's like a respect towards marriage when you have God at the center, right? And so for us, that's been pivotal to having God at the center of our marriage and understanding that, hey, you and I were brought together for a reason and for a vision greater than ourselves. And so to your point, I'm here to serve whatever God has put inside of you, and you're here to serve whatever God's put inside of me, because together, when we're both operating out of that place, then something amazing, extraordinary is going to happen. And so, you know, when we have disagreements or we're in hard places, we don't get to give up on each other, because this isn't about you or this isn't about me. This is about us and what's on our life and our family's life to bring forth for eternal perspective or for eternity. And so it just gives you this greater sense of calling, if you will, and this greater sense of purpose for not just your marriage, but really for life and what you're building and what you're doing.
Yeah, I love that, because it's like it gives a more meaning to it, you know, versus saying like, all right, I'm doing my own thing. Because I feel like also, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like you have certain dreams or things that you want to do, right? And then it's like once you get married, it's like, how can our vision align, or like how can we go towards one thing together? Because even sometimes I'm like thinking about a relationship, I'm like, there's so many things that I like to do, or like my schedule, that it's like I would say how I'm single. It's like I'm selfish with my time, you know, I'm selfish with the things that I want and all of those things. But I know that does change and shift once you get married. So how was that adjustment maybe in the earlier years to then now? Because you guys have been together for...
We've been married for 12 years.
12 years. And you guys have known each other since like college, correct?
No.
After college? Before college?
We actually, way 13 years.
Yeah, 13 years getting to know each other. But I think I was 2-3 years fresh out of college. And then same,
yeah. So I was 24 when we met. Married at 25. We got married. We got engaged within 11 months of dating, and then married within 6 months. Yeah, we knew. Like a year and a half from meeting, we were already married. And so we knew. I especially knew.
Yes. Yes. I know you tell the story that you're like, I knew.
I knew he was the one. He took some time, but that's all right. We forgave him.
Time is good. Time is good. You gotta make sure. You gotta make sure you're ready.
But for us practically,
how has that looked like with you guys from first getting married to now, like that growing and like figuring each other out?
Growth hasn't been easy. And I think with anything, growth is like, you know, when you go work out and you want to build muscle, you have to stretch your muscle to build muscle. That's the same thing in marriage. Like you're going to go through so much, you know, so many situations where you're like, oh my gosh, this woman's driving me nuts, or this guy is like a douche, or excuse my language. But it's those times where you decide, okay, I want to be with you because right now I don't like you, but I love you. And that's okay. And we make mistakes. Like you said, no couple's perfect. We certainly are very perfect. But we made our own share of mistakes in every area, you know, from lying to manipulation to this or to that. Like, not that we have issues, but anyway. But we've made our fair share of mistakes. And we've decided that, you know what, I embrace you for who you are, and vice versa. And I think with marriage, it's like it's been that, like, we've been through ups and downs, battles, weight issues, financial issues, emotional issues. But again, at the end of the day, like, we've been able to stretch that marriage muscle to be able to sustain ourselves for who knows what's to come. Because we're fairly young as a couple. Like, it's only been 12 years. If now you think about our parents and how long they've been married. I just met a guy who's been married for 54 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him, and he's like talking to me about his wife. Like, they're still dating. And I'm like, man, I want to be that.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure the wife hasn't been an angel the 54 years of marriage.
Yeah.
But I want to be that. I want to get to 54 years and be like, you know what? I choose you above all, and I don't regret anything that we've done.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Practically speaking, like at the beginning, right? So, like, it's hard to decide, right? Like, what are we going to put our efforts to? What are we going to put our things to? And I have, for example, in my case, I had this nonprofit, and it was doing anti-human trafficking work, and I put myself in some very dangerous situations. And when we got married, I mean, my dad was already on me of like, I don't want you doing this. Like, this is dangerous. And then he comes in the picture and he's like, oh, I definitely don't want you doing this.
He's like, what if something happens to you?
Exactly. And, you know, and we just had to navigate that because I'm here going, but God called me to this. And I know God called me to this. And it was interesting. Like, he was very supportive.
Okay. Okay. Oh, there you go. You're going to it.
I'm getting to it.
He's like, we haven't forgotten about the other part.
And this is where it's like he understood that, and he knew that God had called me. But now it was like, right, how are we going to now reconcile this idea that I don't feel called to anti-human trafficking work in the way you do. I don't appreciate the way you're doing it because it's
you're putting yourself in
unsettling
danger.
my heart, right, as a husband. And you're putting yourself in danger and all these things. And so I'm very grateful that even in the midst of that, he really supported me. He showed up. He helped me fundraise. He helped me do all the things. And then he helped me pray and really navigate what that next season was going to look like. And in turn, because he served me and because he loved me and led me well through that, I was then able to be like, okay, Lord, like, let me have a submissive heart. And I know we've had this conversation. If you're triggered by the word, go listen to that episode. But let me have a submissive heart and pray about this and really see where you want me to take this. And what do I do with this passion I have inside of me? And it was interesting, slowly but surely, God started to turn my heart and show me and open doors. And I was able to, that nonprofit is still running. I was able to hand off the leadership to somebody else who is in a better place to do that. And it's still running. They're still doing the work. And Carlos and I have moved on to other things and we're together. And so I think, again, I know it sounds so redundant, but like, if you have God at the center and you really honor each other, and you know how the word really says to honor one another and pray together and really write down vision. That was huge for us, writing down, you know, what we were feeling and seeing what things were aligning on his end, on my end. I remember every New Year's we go to this little hole in the wall sushi place and like we just have a vision night, very low key, just us, and just like, let's talk about what we see for the year, what we see for our lives, what is God telling us, what is God speaking to you, what is God speaking to me, and then what of those things align. And naturally it just got sifted out of our lives. And so that, you know, I think not coming in with the, all right, we're a new marriage. This is what we're doing. Game plan. Like, just erase everything. And, like, we're these two brand new people. No, you are two, especially the older you get, you're two established people with routines. And you're not children. You're adults making grown adult decisions. And so that needs to come with a level of respect and empathy that merits that. And that merits your relationship. And then, you know, that respect and admiration will then turn into that working together.
Yeah. I know you guys, a really big part of your guys' story is also about your son that was diagnosed and what he's walked through. And some other challenges that you guys have had. I know that's one. But can you share a little bit about that? Because, you know, it sounds like it's like, okay, like you have a vision, you guys merge together, you guys are but it's like, I know that it's not always the best. And even when you have like genuine hearts and you have certain goals and all these things, like things still happen in life. So how have you guys been able to, Carlos, how have you been able to walk through that?
One of those things earlier when I was talking about muscle and stretching, life is going to hit you guys. Like life is not easy. But the unease of it is what builds you. Obviously it's all a matter of how you take it, but you're talking about our son, firstborn, gets diagnosed with autism. I didn't even know what that was. Just like I didn't know what human trafficking was.
We don't know.
And that took a toll on both her and I in different ways, you know? At the beginning, she had to be the strong one, while I was not. I was the one angry, like I didn't accept what was going on. On the contrary, I was like blaming her and like fighting with her, and it's like the last thing she needed was, on top of all this that she was doing for our son, now dealing with my emotions. So that took a toll on its own. And me talking as the husband, I wasn't happy during that time. It was a very, very dark time for me.
Was it grief that you were going through, or just anger of what?
I think you go through the 5 stages with when you get any type of diagnosis, you go through the 5 stages of like
grief and anger is a part of manifestation of grief. And it's that, I mean, it's, you know, you're right, like we really did have an awesome start. I remember our first year of marriage, you know, everyone's like, oh, get ready, the problems, the first year, you know. And it's like, we could have not been happier. Like yes, we had some things here and there, but like literally our first fight, this is embarrassing, but I'll go on the record and say it. Like, we had our first fight and Carlos walks out. He's like, I'm going to sleep on the couch. Like, he goes on the couch, and literally minutes later, I go and I lay down on the floor because we didn't fit. We had a small couch. And I lay on the floor and I put my arm around him. He turns around and he's like, have some dignity.
Have some dignity. Like, seriously?
She's like, no, we're not going to fight.
Like, we're not going to fight. And that was literally our first fight. Like, it was so silly. It's so dumb. But we really did have an awesome start to our marriage. And 2.5 years into it, Sebastian comes around, and, you know, he's
the
this
biggest blessing.
Awesome, biggest blessing. We're so happy. 9 months later, I get pregnant with Nicholas. And so now we have these 2 babies. And, you know, at that point I was going through postpartum, but, you know, again, God is so good and really redeemed a lot of that.
Thank God.
And then
that's a hard time.
You know, and then it's like right when we're coming out of that breather, you know, and Nicholas is turning 1, Sebastian gets diagnosed with autism. And it's like, the only way I can describe it is we thought we had this apple tree and we were going to eat apples and make applesauce and have this beautiful apple life, and we got given oranges. And we could not understand for the life of us what to do with oranges, because that's not what we had been preparing for. And that was very hard. And, you know, again, back to that thing. Yes, we're married, but we're two whole individuals, and he's going through his process. He's processing it by anger. I'm, in my total type A persona, am channeling it through how am I going to fix this, and organizing and color coding documents and doing all the things. And I just went into fix it mode, which is another way of avoidance and all the things. That's another topic. But, that was hard. That was hard on our marriage. And again, it all goes back to, we made a resolution that this family is called to something bigger than ourselves, and a diagnosis doesn't change that. Life doesn't change that. Variables that are outside of our control don't change that. This remains. And so what are we going to do to fix this situation? Or reconcile this situation. And so that's kind of, you know, what that was the underlying foundation that got us through that season of like that initial shock. And now we're just like, well,
it's funny because yesterday my mom is going on this she's going down memory lane for the past few weeks. She's sending us all these videos and yesterday it was about Sebastian, and Sebastian was nonverbal. So we're both watching these videos at our own times and crying because now he's fully verbal. Now he's healthy, like he eats. He was skin and bones back then. Like now there's a lot of development that went into it, and you're like, you look back at it now and you're like, wow, that was a really tough time. Both for him, for our families, for us. And now it's like the only thing we can do is thank God that where he is, where we all are, and just where he's going to go. Because he always had us. Even in the dark times, even in me yelling at her and saying, get out of here. No, I'm kidding.
Some mixed emotions.
He did tell me to sit down and shut up, or shut up and sit down.
Shut up and sit down.
In a full airplane of people, 2 rows behind me.
Because you were freaking out?
I don't know. He was having a meltdown or something.
Okay. Yeah.
Sebastian was having a meltdown. He was putting stuff up in the overhead.
I don't think I said shut up. I think I just said sit down.
Oh, yes. It was sit down. And literally everyone around me look around me like, you okay?
You good? Blink twice.
Blink twice. You good?
Because he beats you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Which I've never laid a hand on my wife.
No, never.
In those situations.
Oh,
but
he
like
knows
someone
better.
from the outside, of course, like you only know one part. But in those moments, and maybe like this is something that also I can learn from, like with dealing with a child with autism, right? Like from the outside and all of that. Like, have you guys felt sometimes people aren't considerate or like don't?
Oh, 100%.
100% of people aren't. But I used to be one of them.
Okay.
Because again, I had no idea what autism was.
Yeah.
So whenever I saw a child having some sort of a tantrum or an attack, I'd be like, if that were my child,
I would grab him by the
I'd
neck.
grab him and take him to the restroom and spank.
Yeah.
And now it's like, how can I help you? I'll carry that for you.
Yeah.
And like I used to travel a lot alone. And when I would always see a mom traveling alone or something, gathering all these bags, I'd be like, can I help you? Like, can I do something? Just because I was like, if Carolina were in that place, I would want somebody to like put like help her. And there was times where at the airport, like our child had a meltdown right at security or right at TSA. And it was just like, how do you handle those situations? You know, with me, it was
take a deep breath.
I just spit all over the table. Sorry. The Hulk was coming out. And with her, it's like, she was sat up on the floor with him, trying to soothe him. She went through like all these steps. And I'm like,
everybody can wait.
Grab him and move out of the way because we're inconveniencing. Because people look at you bad. Like people look at you like in disgust almost. And it's like, oh, like that.
And
parent.
I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, this is my time. We're gonna get this figured out right here.
You don't pay my bills. Moving on.
And it took years. And I think last year for a wedding we went to was the first time he sat through the whole flight just minding his own business. And it took
6 years.
6 years of him
Wow.
jumping around, slapping, hitting. I used to get bumped to business all the time.
Wait, what do you mean? Oh, like
Because I have status with
status.
airlines.
Oh,
So
So he
because
would
I
get-
travel so much, I have
Yeah.
status. So I would get bumped to business. And I'd be like, do you want it? You can take it. And she'd be like, no, you have it. And then suddenly I look back and it's like, Daddy!
Oh
And
my
Carolina's like, her hair's like all over the place.
with
and I'm
all
like,
the children, I can't.
So we started doing was like, I would give my seat to the person next to her.
Ah,
She's like,
okay.
you better get your behind here and help me with these kids.
Yeah, that's a whole family solution dilemma.
So
but I'm so
having
happy
said
to
that, we have
hear
so
that.
much compassion and we're always like
Yeah.
trying to help. And
Yeah. No, but that's beautiful because I know that you guys have had hard times and that's real. Like that part of like what people see like in those moments that I'm sure that you didn't know. Like you're like, I don't even know how to handle this. You're like,
Yeah.
what is this diagnosis? How is this gonna look like? And I know you guys have shared like how is it gonna be when he's older and like
Yeah.
those kind of questions that we don't have answers to. And sometimes that's the hard part of the
Yes.
process. But also how much grace you guys have had and even how you guys are able to do everything with like that purpose of like I'm doing
Yes.
this for my kids. Even when I see them here, all your kids here, it's
Yes.
like I love that because it's like they're a part of.
they are the reason we
Yeah,
did
they
this.
are the why.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was the what was that kind of moment?
It was special needs.
Yeah.
Special needs pushed us to do something because it's just therapies and all that is just such an expensive world, which again, to all those special needs parents, like I'm with you guys. And we had to do something about it.
Yeah, so it's a twofold thing. Obviously, entrepreneurship, and I know Sunira says this all the time, but like for us, it came out of necessity. Like we had to find a way to increase our income to be able to
Substantially.
provide the kind of life and opportunities we wanted for our son. And we understand that even in saying that, there's some privilege. Like we know that that's not everyone's case, but for us, we took a risk and we in faith felt like this was the move for us. And so there's that side, but then also, you know, we have these 3 children and our gifting is in this world, is in this space. And if we look at all the filth that's being put out right now in media, like this is the world they're going to live in. Content creation is where the world is, where it's headed. Everything is based off of media. And so if this is our gifting, if this is where we can make an impact, then what can we do to better this space for them, right? And that's part of legacy. We feel a responsibility for the type of content that gets put out, the kind of voices, the kind of the media
they
that's
see-
getting
yeah,
what
what they're
they're
gonna
going to
see all the
consume
time. Yeah.
growing up. And so that was also a second fold of our why we're doing what we're doing with High Hello Labs.
How has that looked like for you guys in the past 2 to 3 years? Like working together full time now.
Yeah,
in this
the
space.
highs are really high and the lows are really
another
low.
muscle's being stretched.
Yeah. Another
I'm
muscle's
sure.
being
I'm sure. Because it's
stretched.
like one thing is like, how can you keep what's here, and take what's home? You know what I mean? It's like
Yes.
work here, but then it's like I'm sure it mixes sometimes, and I'm sure there's moments.
Well,
and,
it's funny you say that because Carolina would always tell me, oh, the day that we'll be able to go to the office together, or like, oh, the
Driving.
day.
Oh, yes.
we'll
It was
work
so
together.
romanticized.
For years, she would always wish this.
yeah.
And I would love it too. I'd be like, okay, yeah, I mean, that'd be awesome. And we knew that like we were meant for more than where we were. But we just didn't know the timing. And this is where like trusting God's perfect timing is like prime. Because the way I left my previous employer was, again, God's perfect timing. It was like God had this strategy, this map of like how it was all going to happen.
Which you don't see in the moment. You only hindsight is you're like, oh, wow, remember we did this and that set us up for this. So, yeah.
You start seeing the puzzle being laid out.
Yeah.
And now to see like, oh, this happened at this time because of this, and this like domino affected this. You're like, well, thank you. The only thing we can do is like praise you and thank you, even for all the bad that you would see. Like, well, I had all these people talking bad about me and this and that, and it's like, why would they do that? It's people that I loved and cared for. But that created resilience in me. That created a different characteristic in me that I didn't have before. So it's like, there are little things that you're like, at the moment you're like, God, why are we going through this? There are things we're going through now that I'm like, God, why are we going through this? But all I can do is trust God and know that there is a purpose. There is greater purpose than even what we want right now.
Yeah, and to answer the question, like for us now, you know, it's that working together, it comes back to the same thing of like that respect. And in some ways it feels like we're starting over. Like, okay, let's get to know. You bring your whole self, I bring my whole self. You have gifts, I have gifts. How are we going to now navigate this new partnership and this new level of partnership? And that, you know, that hasn't been easy because at home we play certain roles, and then here those roles sometimes have to be reversed. And it's hard for him to hear me say, okay, right, I'm in charge. This is not how we're going to do this. Energy. Yeah, I have
a whole episode on that.
Yes, we did a whole
masculine
episode.
energy.
Sometimes I have to step into masculine energy. That's all right. But then, you know, and then me having to trust him and being like, okay, you know what? I'm not the smartest person in the room, and that's okay.
For example, in this podcast, she's always, after I answer, she's like, well, let me answer the question. Because obviously I don't answer any of the questions.
No, it's because you go off on tangents, which they're really good, but I'm trying to stay on
she's
topic.
the more type A,
I'm
though,
the
so
type
she
A.
remembers.
She's the boring one, I'm the exciting one.
The spice. El sazón.
But even, for example,
I'm the
in that,
brains, he's the beauty.
Even in that, like, I've learned to like, okay, she doesn't mean harm. She's not nitpicking.
We're for each other.
She's not here like, oh, he's stupid.
You won't shut up right now.
You're embarrassing us. No. I know that, like, even in that, like, well, let me answer the question is like to bring that side of knowledge that I haven't delivered, and vice versa. And sometimes I look at her and I'm like, well, what do you think? Well, I think you need to handle this. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want you in that meeting. It's like, well, I need to be in that meeting. I was like, I don't think you should. And I know why. Like, I have my reasons, and I give them
for
to
the best
her.
interest of helping each other.
It's like, I can't have you in that meeting because of XYZ, and understand that. And it's like, and me telling her, like, I can't have you in that meeting because XYZ, I'm hoping that she understands, like, do I act this way? Do I do this? How do I reflect? You know, because it's like some of the things that you do unconsciously or trying to help me actually hurt me, and vice versa. So we're always like, you know, for each other, even if there's things where we're like, we just don't get way. I don't know why you're dealing with that. She would always tell me, I'm not responsible for your emotions.
Yeah,
and I'm
that
like,
was
oh, really? Well, I'm not responsible for yours either.
Things you're expressing.
Well, that was my safeguard back when, like, we got the diagnosis and he was going through his anger. Like, I was just like, I had to put a full stop boundary. You would be so proud of me. Yeah. But, like, I had to put a full stop boundary, and, like, I'm not engaging in this conversation because you want to hold me accountable for something I'm not responsible for, which is your emotions, your anger, and your process. You've got to figure that out. I can't process that for you. And I gave him the space to do that in a safe and respectful space. Like, and I think that as women, like, we need to, especially as young wives, like, this is very, very, very hard to do. But I say one of the things that I'm proud of is that I've always prayed my husband up versus nagging him down. And if you can grasp that, the earlier you grasp that concept, the easier marriage will become. Because then you realize you're not responsible for him. You're not responsible for what he does. Your job is to be the helper, right? That's our biblical role. And I think I said this in our last episode we did together, but, like, as men, hi men, would you not want the most capable, smartest, amazing helper by your side? And so that's why it's important for men to build your wives up.
Yeah.
You want the most amazing expert at your side. You can't do that with a doormat. Men
But we do
who
want,
treat
we,
women as
we
a
do want
doormat.
wives, not men.
That too. Yeah.
Right.
That too.
And women want, or
Masculine men.
wives want husbands, not wives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so in doing that, you know, understanding that it's not my job to change him. That's not my responsibility. And so even in this, as we're working together, like, it's not my job to help him. Like, it's my job to help him be the leader he's called to be, but it's not my job to make him be the leader.
Yeah.
Or change me.
Or change him. Like, he's going to grow into that. And that's been hard for me because I've
helper.
got the entrepreneurship.
You're like, all right, let's get to it. Here's the plan.
As women, we have the intuition to see ahead. I think we have the ability to be a little bit bigger vision and see ahead. And so for me, I'm like, okay, if we can skip 3 steps and get there faster. Or, you know, he'll have these aha moments of something that I've been saying for the past 3 months, and he just realized it. And now it's his idea.
Yeah.
I've gotten past that. I don't even care.
Yes.
It's your idea. Wonderful. Let's jump on it. Let's do it. I've been waiting for this for 3 months.
Yeah.
But how I wait in those 3 months is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And so that goes for everything in your marriage. How you wait for him to step up, how you wait for him to lead, how you wait for him to do that is going to determine the outcome of that when he finally gets there. Is he gonna want you at his side when he finally gets there?
That's good.
That's important.
What about from the guy's perspective, like what a young man, right, for a wife, you know, what is something that maybe you can share on that regard?
Well, I think that's what like dating is for. Like, are you talking about before marriage?
The process, or even early on.
Marriage.
Like before marriage, I knew what I was getting myself into. Like, I knew how much of a leader she was. I knew that she had a vision, she had goals, and I loved that about her. But I also knew that she wanted to change things in me. And what I said was like, this is me, take me or leave me. Because if this isn't gonna work. So we kind of laid the foundation and to the young man, like I would tell you guys, like, really do your homework on analyzing her to make sure that she's exactly what you want and what you can handle. Now, I have learned so much more because of who she is. So in my last 12 years of marriage, like I mean, I'm not the same kid I was thanks to her though. So I've learned from her things that, and I'm not saying like, oh, she controlled me or she told me, or just by looking at her character, looking how she did things, looking how she saw things. Again, envisioning things like, yeah, she says that she tells me things in advance and whatever, and she's like, finally, I got it. But I've learned to be that way too, where I now see things in advance that I've saved her behind from things too, where it's like, I didn't have that before. So I learned it from her.
That's good.
So because we see each other as co and peers, and I always say,
Side
like,
by side,
because for example, here at the business, they're like, oh, you're the owner. No, I'm the co-founder. And she's my co-founder. And it's like, there was a website we were going to be on, and they were like, CEO Carlos Flores. And I was like, no, please remove CEO. It's co-founder Carlos Flores, co-founder Carolina Flores. The credit is for both. This is a battle we are both fighting together. This is a kingdom we are both building together. And it's not about who does it better, who does it worse. Today, I might be low and she needs to be the head. And tomorrow, I might be the head. You know, we're a chess game in life, and it's how we learn from our other piece that how we can grow. So I would suggest to all those young men and all those young married men, don't look at your wife as the enemy. Look at your wife as your teammate.
Yeah.
We're in it for the same thing. We're in the same team, you know. We're the Chiefs right here. We're playing Kelsey Mahomes.
And the Chiefs won. I'm kidding.
So It's that. It's like, and it's very easy because
Yeah.
I will say it. I saw her many times and I'd be like, she's my
hates me.
enemy.
Yeah.
Even
It's the way they
with the
deliver.
diagnosis, I would say
Yeah.
like, why are you against your son? How dare you? But it's like we're teammates in this game of life, and in this walk of life, we are teammates to finish, that mile.
Yeah, that's so good.
Or marathon in our case.
Yeah, I know it's a process in a journey, and
Yes.
I love how even with your podcast, you guys talk about like the modern marriage. What are maybe some unpopular or popular opinions that you guys have on a modern marriage today? Like maybe some things that you can share with.
I don't like his and her accounts.
Oh, like separate accounts?
Separate accounts.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's a
everyone
very
should have
modern
one.
bank account.
Yeah,
I think that's a very modern marriage thing where it's like, oh, well, I have my bank account, you have your bank account. It's like, buddy.
Yeah. If you can share children, you can share a home, you can share.
Yes.
Those are the things.
Well,
Agreed.
the Ramsey team always says, your marriage act like one.
Yeah. That's a good
yeah,
one.
I think another one is like divorce is not an option. I don't know, popular or unpopular. Everyone now is so easy to run away. There's so many options in a world of social media where you can get instant dating apps, and I can find someone tonight. I can be hooked up with someone tonight. Like, it's just divorce is not an option. It should not be an option unless you're in a situation of abuse, infidelity, or, something like that where it merits absolutely, sis, get out, bro. You don't need to take that. Like, toxicity is not a thing that we endorse. But man, some people are just too quick to be like, okay, bye, not worth my effort.
If it doesn't feel good.
If it doesn't feel, there are many moments that I do not feel like I love this man, like feel, you know. But there's a determination. There's a covenant we've made. There's a promise I made. There's a vow we've made to be in the good and the bad and in the in-between and all the things. And that has to mean something to people. Yeah. And I feel like we've lost that in marriage. And so I think, we're very passionate about it. And that's why we wanted to start the podcast. I remember when we started CoCalled, it was 2017. Podcasting wasn't really a thing. And it was just becoming a thing. And people were like, you guys are going to have a marriage podcast? Oh, the experts. And I think we were like, I don't know, 5 years into marriage or 6 years into marriage. Whatever, do the math. Math is not my thing. And people were like, oh, the experts. And they would make fun of us. And I'm like, but this is why. And then you turn,
fast forward the
years. The amount of testimonies we've gotten from marriages that say, oh my gosh, thank you. I was going through this and we had so much shame. We didn't know that. We thought we were breaking because we were going through this. But to hear that you guys were going through it. Listen, we have so many couples, older couples that speak into our lives. I think it's also a key part of what we believe in. You should have elders speaking into your life. You should have couples and marriages that you look up to that have been married for 50 years, 30 years, 20 years that are speaking into your life and giving you wisdom and giving you, that experience-based knowledge that just comes from living life. But our parents lived in a completely different world. Our parents don't know how to navigate a marriage with social media in between. Our parents don't know how to navigate marriage in the fast-paced world we're living in now with all the things. And so even raising children, like our parents didn't raise us in a world, the one we're now raising our kids. It's completely different. Are there timeless concepts that can be passed down? Absolutely. But the reality is that there are things we're going through that only our generation understands. And we didn't want to wait 20 years to pass to then tell, peers like, oh, yeah, by the way, this is how we solved that. And you guys ended up in divorce and
And they needed that.
And they needed that advice. Yes, they needed that validation or they needed that to hear that somebody else was going through that and yet we were okay, you can be okay too. Yeah. And so that is also part of the reason why, we started it. We're like, this is a podcast for modern marriage. Like we live in modern times and we bring up some very unpopular, quote unquote, ideas, but the reality is that they work, and there's a reason why.
Yeah. Some foundational truths that I feel like no matter what are still essential. And sometimes like even now that I've experienced and I've shared on the podcast about dating and dating apps and all these things, I'm like, there's still some things that I'm like, I'm very traditional about. Like I'm very like, even as the world changes, I'm like, I still value certain things. So
tradition is beautiful.
Yeah. Like I feel like having the 50 years that you've been with someone to say like you watch someone through all the seasons, that you guys have grandchildren or you guys have, like, that's beautiful to me, like to experience that, you know. Absolutely. So thank you guys for sharing part of your story. Is there any last encouragement or anything that you would like to leave with our listeners today?
No, I would encourage you, like, let the woman talk.
Stop.
No, I would encourage you to look at your marriage as you know, this is going to be the highlight of your life. Like, you can build businesses, relationships, whatever it is you want, like, but you will be with this person lifetimes, more than anyone else. Your children will leave you, your family will leave you, but this person will remain. That should be your biggest investment. When it comes to time, when it comes to emotional, like financial, like take trips together, date together, have visions together, fight together. Fighting is good. Fighting is not a bad thing.
It's like you're caring about the cause.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, love each other well. Because sometimes, like, you love because you want something or you need something, or I need her to do my laundry, or I need her, like, right here, she does laundry sometimes, I do laundry sometimes, you know. It's not a, like, she needs to do this. However, we both know our roles. And that's one of the things, like, invest in this. Because this is your biggest trophy in life, your marriage.
Yeah. That's an unpopular opinion, choosing your wife over your kids.
Oh, yeah.
That's an unpopular opinion, but I believe in that too.
Yeah.
Because it's like, at the end of the day, who do you have next to you?
Yes. And for them to see, I mean, think about all of the foundational truths you learned by watching your parents. All the things you learned to accept, to not accept, to desire, to think is acceptable. Like, our kids see us loving each other well, and I think that's the greatest gift we can give them. And they know that, you know, nothing gives them more sense of security than seeing us together and well. Like, that is their pride and joy. And we see it, you know, sometimes they'll catch us, you know, kissing in the kitchen or hugging or whatever, and they're like, ooh, smoochy kiss, you know, or whatever. And you're just like, why does that bring them so much joy? And I think because it just represents that love, safety and that security. At home,
yeah.
And so,
and that's a gift, because a lot of people, I feel like, we bring on that stuff that we saw in childhood, right?
Absolutely.
And then that builds on to how we show up, you know? So I love how you guys
even
are
in times like when we're fighting or something's wrong, the kids sense it. You sense it at home.
Yeah.
And we have to, like, can you just say sorry to me? And just...
But we do. If we fight in front of the kids, we apologize in front of the kids.
Well, we try not to.
Yeah, we try not to. But if we argue or something.
Yeah.
She's always yelling at me and... beating me. No, we definitely we try to do it away from them, or like talk about stuff like that, like outside of them, because again, it's like they'll take it.
It's not their place. And
even if we're talking about them, like, you know, we take it somewhere else.
For sure. No, thank you guys so much for sharing and being open and honest today with our listeners. And I'm for sure that you guys have so many other things that you have walked through. And so if you want to hear more, make sure to check out CoCalled. They're back. I heard the last episode really good.
Yes, we're back.
And where else can they connect with you guys? And
we have our social medias, Carlos Flores, at Carlos Flores. And
I'm at Carolina Flores.
And if you want to start a podcast, check out High Hello Labs.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. This was a great conversation. I know that you encouraged a couple, because I feel like I love to bring on people that have walked through certain things and that have the knowledge that I don't have yet. Yeah. And at the end of the day, that also inspires me to want something like that. You know, that I know that for those people that are praying for marriage or in a marriage, and they're like, can we walk through this? You know,
it's worth it.
It's worth it.
Yes,
it's worth it.
I love that. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
And so thank you guys for tuning into this week's podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I know we talked a little bit about everything when it comes to marriage, and as well as things to just keep fighting for in your marriage. And I really love those takeaways that they gave. And so make sure to follow them, as well as subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Share it with a friend that it can encourage someone. And I will see you guys next week.